Hi everyone, welcome to episode 8 of my RollerCoaster Deluxe series. In this one we'll be going through Katie's World, which if you weren't aware, Katie's World is actually the first scenario in the original RollerCoaster Tycoon set that is based on a real park. It's based on Lightwater Valley in the UK, which I've never been to, by the way. So in kind of going through this park, I decided my approach would be, instead of doing something like I usually do with the, going crazy with scenery and approaching with my own idea, I decided this time around what I would do is kind of take inspiration from the real Lightwater Valley. And to that end, I decided to spend some time doing some research. I looked at some ride point of views. I looked at some vlogs from the park. I will make all the research materials that I used available in the description of this video. I also acquired 2 park maps, one from 1996 and the other is from 2013. Although I went and I looked through a whole bunch of park maps from over the years, but the 2 for inspiration that I settled on would be 1996 and 2013. And the reason that I settled on these is that 1996 would be the park map that Chris Sawyer himself was using when he visited the park and was doing the research. And 2013 is what I decided would be sort of my target year. The year that I would bring the park up to date to, as it had a good combination of some rides that still existed in the 1996 era, and also some new stuff. It's the debut year for Eagles Creek Farm. So, that's pretty exciting. A lot of fans of this park are big fans of Eagles Creek Farm. So we'll be building that as well. And that's the approach that I decided to take this time around. So it's not going to be quite the same as the past parks in that I'm not going to go super crazy and build out the entire park. Rather, what I'm going to aim to do this time around is to approximate the 2013 park layout as best I can. Now, of course, I take a huge amount of artistic license in doing this and working within the limitations of the game, and not just the limitations of the game, but also the limitations of RCT1, which doesn't have some of the rides that would later be added in the expansions, which would be required to actually properly implement the park as it's displayed in 2013. But I use some approximations, and you can think of my version of Katie's World here as, the Grand Theft Auto equivalent of, between Los Angeles and Los Santos. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. This isn't necessarily a recreation of Lightwater Valley, but I do try to get it fairly close to what's in the park map specifically, not so much the actual on-the-ground footage. I didn't try to replicate like any of the scenery or anything that was from the real-life videos. I just wanted to get a feel for how the park kind of felt, but I do lean heavily on the 2013 park map and the look of the 2013 park map, as it's quite cartoony and it really fits with the RollerCoaster Tycoon look. You can tell that the park was a huge inspiration for the game. Several of the rides that, even the ones that aren't featured, like for instance the Ladybird cars on the mini steel roller coaster, came directly from the Ladybird roller coaster at this park, though it's not actually in the scenario. But I felt that it definitely shouldn't be missing, so I do create an approximation of it called the Gentle Bird later on. The entrance area was probably one of the more challenging areas. It took me a long time to really start getting going with this build, as the entrance in the scenario area does not have any park space to the right of the entrance, which in the real life park there's a mini golf over there, and eventually they did end up moving the entrance. So that was another reason why I chose the 2013 map, is it's one of the last maps available that has the old park entrance that would align with this scenario layout. The new entrance would be outside of the park bounds. So what I decided to do, because I couldn't build over there, was just kind of build like a whole bunch of facade buildings best I could. The main food court area is much larger than what I was able to actually do in the map, but that's unfortunately just due to the way that the entrance is. I also had to change the way my screenshot worked, because if I took a screenshot at the normal angle that I usually take a screenshot of, the majority of the screenshot was going to be just out of bounds park area. So I had to rotate it so that the entrance is facing a different direction. So instead of getting the southern view, you're now getting the eastern view. But you know, I tried to keep it as close as possible to the standard that I've set anyway. But yeah, there are some scenarios where I'm going to have to jig things around a little bit just to make it work properly, and so my screenshot isn't nothing. I'm now doing the construction of the Gentle Bird. This was an actually pretty challenging coaster to build. I didn't even bother trying to get the minimum requirements for high excitement, as the real Ladybird itself is actually a children's coaster anyway, and so I instead aimed to just fit something that approximated the Ladybird design. It's not a replica, it's an approximation. But the real challenging thing was to make something somewhat interesting that could fit within the space that I figured would make the most sense for the location of the Ladybird in relative proximity to everything else. And so this was sort of why I went about creating all of the landmarks first, as that way, with the landmarks in place, I could kind of use my imagination or artistic license to fill in the spaces. But getting the landmarks in appropriate positions within the appropriate area really was a challenge. I ended up having to create a little tunnel for the Gentle Bird there, which does not exist in the Ladybird layout, just to get it to be able to swing around, and do a couple loops and figure eights within the space. In the end, though, I was really happy with the layout. I thought it was pretty good. It goes at just the right speed for what I was aiming for, and I think replicates the speed of the actual Ladybird fairly accurately, which you can see in the reference material if you're curious. Something else that was in the park map that I really wanted to recreate was that brick bridge over the train. I actually ended up creating two of them because I thought it looked so good that I used it as a solution to another area where I really needed to just close a path loop closer to the entrance, and as I wanted one of the loops to be a little bit smaller. Finally, I found a layout that was usable, and so I color it to match something that I thought would be similar to what the real Ladybird is. For the area underneath the Ladybird, though, the real one is just like tarmac. It's just cement. I decided, given that the area that I built it on is a little bit hillier than the real Ladybird, I decided I would just make it dirt instead, especially since it's right next to the Ultimate, or the Storm as it's called in this scenario. As well, it was right near the train. And so I thought it was a good compromise, and it's an example of the type of artistic license that I take when recreating some of these approximations of what the actual park is in real life. This is one ride that I added that is not in the actual park map, the spiral slide. I do add a few flat rides that are not contained within the park map, just to sort of fill in the space and to supplement the lack of flat rides that you get in the RCT1 edition of this scenario. I think this scenario will be really interesting to replay in RCT Classic, as the RCT Classic rendition actually has a lot more of the rides and scenery that would allow me to get a lot closer to the real thing as it's portrayed in the park map. I had to make a lot of compromises with the limitations in real RCT1. Probably the most central landmark is the giant set of water slides that Lightwater Valley has in the center of the park. Unfortunately, given the way that water slides work and the limited pieces, instead of making 3 water slides, I just created 1. And honestly, the final layout, I adjust this a few times to try to get it as close to looking like what the actual one looks like. But honestly, I think I could probably do a better job even than the final result, which this isn't the final result. I rejig it a few times to try to get a closer look. But I would really like to do an even better job than the final result. It's just, unfortunately, with the way that water slide physics work and the limited pieces, there's really only so much you can do within a limited area. Another challenging aspect of building the rides in this scenario is that Chris Sawyer's layout sort of predefines how much space I have and the positioning of things. So, like, he didn't leave very much space around the lake, whereas the real life park has a lot more space between the train tracks and the lake, allowing for a lot more sort of outdoor picnicky areas. I omit most of those, again, kind of introducing my own artistic flair and style to the park as well. I do try to fill in the areas and not leave the whole thing open, as the real life park is fairly open. And I wanted to make it a little more interesting for RCT park building purposes. However, I do try to overall keep the look and feel, placement and everything like that. So, like I said, it's all about compromises. It's about figuring out, what can I do that's the best representation without breaking the existing layout. I didn't want to rejig the train or rejig anything that Chris Sawyer had set up. And in the end, I don't even end up decorating the Storm or the Ultimate. I decided I would just leave it as is. And again, maybe in a future episode, if I do a part 2 where I actually expand this park beyond the 2013 park map, I might go and develop that area. Or who knows, maybe I'll take a future park map and just see what Lightwater Valley actually ends up doing with that area and try to replicate that as well. Who knows? But I basically left that area open for that reason, as I just didn't feel like time spent developing it makes sense, given that I do intend to perhaps get back to it. Oh no. Something's going on. I'm on a main road, so sometimes if you hear noise and things in the background, it's because the road outside my house is very, very loud, and it's also a main road for emergency vehicles and things like that. So I do try to cancel out the noise, but a lot of it gets in. Maybe one day I'll move to a quieter area where there will be rooms in the house that don't have ambient noise, as it is quite annoying for doing these types of YouTube videos and things. Convenient for other things though. I'm very close to a lot of my favorite places. However, you know, it's got its gives and takes, and the traffic that goes by is extremely loud and non-stop. Like, there is no break in the traffic ever. It's always going, there's always ambient noise, and you can hear it from every room in the house, unfortunately. So, you know, it is what it is. But on the flip side, I live really close to West Edmonton Mall, which has the water park and the theme park, and so I really do enjoy going to those. And I don't know, maybe sometime I'll actually attempt to do a recreation of Galaxyland, maybe circa around 2015, when it still had the Mindbender within RollerCoaster Tycoon, or maybe that Indoor Lands game would be a good game for it. I'm not sure of the capabilities. I haven't played it yet. But if it has the same capabilities or similar capabilities to Planet Coaster, I could probably do a pretty good approximation of Galaxyland in that game. But you know, future videos. I gotta stop getting ahead of myself. I do that sometimes. Finally decided to decorate Eagles Creek Farm, or as I called it, Beagles Creek Farm. I didn't want to lift any of the names directly from Lightwater Valley. Again, sort of keeping with the alternative universe GTA style, you know, naming scheme, or also the same thing as like the naming within the game itself. So anything that was like Lightwater Express or things like that, I made Katie's Express, basically interchanging the word Lightwater for Katie, you know, and Valley for world. And in other cases, I would, you know, do a play on words. So for instance, Trauma Tower is Llama Tower. The Drops of Terror is the Drop of Fear. Carousel is still Carousel though. I stuck with that name. I figured that's fine. You know, instead of the Ladybird, I did the Gentle Bird. So along those lines, Black Pearl is the White Pearl. I'm not super inventive with these things. I just wanted something that was in the same vein, but also not the same. Except for Carousel. Carousel is the same. Because there's no animals or anything like that, I had to, you know, get a little inventive with how I created Beagle Creek Farm. I used pretty much anything that had any sort of character. So those like hedges with the squirrel and the giraffe statue and stuff. I threw everything in there, the horse statue, everything I could. So it doesn't have the same animals as Eagles Creek Farm, but that's okay because this is Beagles Creek Farm. So Beagles Creek Farm has duck hedges. You know, they don't have that at Eagles Creek Farm. They don't have duck hedges at Eagles Creek Farm. They should have duck hedges, but they did have other animals that are no longer real, apparently, as of the 2019 vlog update that I watched. So, yeah, the real animals are apparently gone, replaced with statue animals. So the modern day Eagles Creek Farm is actually a lot closer to my RollerCoaster Tycoon Beagles Creek Farm than the 2013 rendition of Eagles Creek Farm. Yeah, the more you know. I was not happy with the water slide, and I finally decided to fix it and make it something a little bit more similar to what is in the picture, where there's no tunnel. I did need to use a tunnel to like get it to go around. I didn't want to have a big loop visible. I just wanted to have the sort of the two sides, the one going up and the one going down. Would be cool if I could get like another one in there, but I'm not really sure how I would do that yet. But if I can think of a way, I'll do it. This is another area where I took a little bit of artistic liberty. The train in the real park has a much more open feel to it from the looks of the videos and things like that. Whereas I, decorated the train track, gave it a lot of trees and interesting things. So I would say that my train does not really aim to replicate what their train did. Although I do leave a few areas by the lake open and stuff, as I did want to have that more open atmosphere in this particular build. In the end, I was pretty happy with how the water slide tunnels ended up looking there. Once I decorate them and things, I think they look pretty good, and do a good enough job of hiding the fact that the water slide has to loop around. It provides enough of an illusion that you've got two sort of maybe separate slides or something like that. That was kind of what I was going for. The big problem with the water slide is that it breaks down a lot, and then people get stuck on flat surfaces because they don't have the momentum to keep going towards the lifts. An issue that is unresolved with this slide is that often if it breaks down at the wrong time, I'll have a single dinghy stuck in the tube at the back of the structure there. And then, of course, once it restarts, another dinghy goes up and it hits it from behind, knocks that dinghy into the next lift, and then that dinghy loses all its momentum, the one that came up from behind, and it stops in the tube and waits for the next dinghy. And this just continues until I close the ride. There's no way to resolve it. And it's an unfortunate aspect of the water slide that the lift cannot turn. I really wish that the lift could turn for the water slide. It would make sense that the lift could turn, like this idea that you would lift and then not turn. Or if turns aren't an option, then having the steep lift where the, and then where the dinghy goes up the lift without a person on it. Because that's usually how water slides like that work. You don't ride the dinghy up to the top. The dinghy goes up on a very steep lift that you would not want to ride on. And then you get a dinghy at the top of the slide and then go down. Typically, that's how they work. So I tried to replicate that. The water slide, the fact that it operates like a roller coaster and RollerCoaster Tycoon, I've never been a big fan of. So I try to avoid using them unless it's a situation like I had in Leafy Lake where I just wanted more water rides, or if I get an actual terrain where I think that the water slide actually will work well, such as in Evergreen Gardens. The real version of this ride is a spinning Wild Mouse coaster, which is in RCT1, but it's not actually in the base scenario set. You don't get it until the expansions. But I did want to include an approximation of this ride, and so I just used the wooden Wild Mouse, as it's probably the closest, although it doesn't have the steel tracks. So in that vein, I sort of themed it closer to the Beagle Creek Farm theming, as opposed to the real life theming, as it just wouldn't make sense for the style of coaster. Same thing with that little lake there. I figured that because there was a bridge and I had rides on either side of the bridge, I thought I would just sort of fill it in with water, and that lake doesn't exist in the real thing either. I just thought that it really fit the terrain in that area, and so I decided to make it. I didn't want to remove any of the existing rides, and so stuff like the Bat Flyer and the go-karts are actually removed as of 2013, which actually made the whole idea of laying everything out a little bit more difficult, because I didn't want to remove those rides. So I wanted to fit everything that had kind of replaced them, such as the pirate sector, which was where the go-karts used to be. Instead, I put the pirates thing kind of next to the go-karts, but beside the Storm, or what is the Ultimate in real life. As a result of that, it's a lot closer to the Ultimate than it should be. even sort of almost getting side by side up near the hill area, but there was really no other way to keep everything sort of somewhat close to the place where I wanted it to be. Another sort of artistic change that I made is I put the entrance to the river rapids in the pirate area, as it just made sense and it was so close. And so I decided to change the river rapids from a more like sort of carnival feel, which is the real life one is sort of like a mobile river rapids, something that you would see at a traveling carnival. They just have it set up there. Instead, I gave it more of a piratey theme in the end. I didn't keep the green theme here. Well, I kept green for the track and everything. I just didn't keep the canvas entrance. I went back to a wooden entrance to match the rest of the pirate stuff. I think it works anyway, since it's a river rapids. It makes sense for the area. Another change that they made was they moved the Black Pearl to a different location and replaced it with the swinging ship. Oh no, they didn't move. So I have that backwards. The swinging ship in the game is supposed to be the Black Pearl, because the Black Pearl is the only ship that existed at the time of the 1996 map. There is no swinging ship on there, you'll notice. There's only the inverted swinging starship. But if you look at the 2013 map, it now has a swinging ship and a swinging starship. But I didn't want to move the swinging ship, otherwise I would have put that there. So the swinging ship is actually in the location of where the swinging inverted starship should be. But because I did not want to move any of the existing rides, instead I just put the swinging starship somewhere else that was a little bit closer. It doesn't replicate exactly where the swinging ship is. I didn't invert them because that would require me to not connect the river rapids to the pirate area. Yeah, it all starts to get a little crammed at the end here as I try to fit all these landmarks in. I pretty much have everything in the park now that I wanted in terms of landmarks and rides. And so it was really just a matter of filling in the spaces, figuring out what I could do with the remaining space to kind of make it interesting and not leave it so open, and default textures. You know, I wanted something there. I had a few more rides that I hadn't used. I put a haunted house. I'm not sure if they have a haunted house in Lightwater Valley. I think they have something like that, but this is just entirely my idea to put that there. I didn't want to, stick to the map 100%. Same thing with the shuttle loop. I didn't mention about the shuttle loop. The reason I put a shuttle loop and not some other coaster, again, is to avoid like significant landmarks. So I did want to have like a higher intensity coaster with an inversion, but I didn't want to have something that would, basically detract from the overall look and feel of the park. And so to that end, I decided to use the shuttle loop, as it provides the excitement and intensity without sticking out. Basically, it's a lot closer to a flat ride. The Llama Tower there, I actually used the old placement. I guess in 2013 that was placed close to the what would have been the Bat Flyer area and the old entrance. But apparently it's been moved closer to Eagles Creek Farm. So I decided to keep it near the entrance as it's displayed in the 2013 map. I also decided to put the space rings, which is contained in the 1996 map. It's been removed since 1996's rendition of the map. But I thought that was pretty interesting that they actually had space rings there. And so I decided to put it back and to keep it. So in my version of this park, the space rings from 1996 has not been removed. Tried to find a nice combination of colors for the Llama Tower that, sort of blended in, but also somewhat replicated the original one, as it is a different type of drop tower. It's not exactly the like the space shot style in real life. It's a different style. We actually have one of the same style here in Galaxyland as the Trauma Tower, but because the space shot style tower that they have in the game isn't exactly the same, you can set it to like a drop mode though. So in this one, instead of having it like fire up, it does do like a downward drop. It raises and drops down, which is how the Trauma Tower in Lightwater Valley works. I decided I would start buying out the land, not the land that was inside the storm. I'll save that for the part 2, but I did buy out the land that just has like the lake area and stuff, sort of in preparation. And I was actually debating like starting to build down there, but I decided against it, as again, I wanted to stick pretty close to what was displayed within the 2013 park map. And I just felt that moving down there, given that it's not even on the map at all, was just too much of a deviation from what I was trying to accomplish in the end. So I didn't want to get too carried away. I had to stop myself a few times from just getting carried away and just building like crazy, as I did want to keep it pretty close to the source material. I did manage to find a 1999 point of view for the Bat Flyer, as that ride was actually dismantled back in like 2002. So it was pretty much like right after RollerCoaster Tycoon was released, with a couple years or 3 years, that ride got dismantled. So, you know, the fact that I was actually able to find a point of view I thought was pretty cool. And that is included in the description of this video. A lot of the inspiration for the rides come from Lightwater Valley. You can see a lot of the rides in the game there. This building here is actually on the map as well, on the 2013 version, although it's not so close to the Ladybird. It's a little bit further away, but again, just due to the space and layout. It is right by where like the food court is, though. The building serves the food court, so I felt that I could just stick the building there. It sort of, you know, sits right by the food court. You know, and it is positionally approximately kind of where the building is. There's just a lot less space to work with here. The observation tower was entirely my idea. I just wanted something to put there, and I thought an observation tower right in the center would be fine. It looks good, you know, gives you a nice view of everything in the park. So I added that. That's not in the park map. Thought giving it sort of like a nice brick finish would work well. This is sort of the area that I kept a little more open with the, you know, not very much in terms of bushes or trees. I wanted to have like nice sort of open grassy lawns. Not too much though, because I do find that if you have too much of it, it just looks very default, which I'm not a big fan of, the whole default look. I really do try to play with the terrain so that the terrain is not the default look. Now, there's some places where, you know, like Dynamite Dunes is one where you know, if you're gonna have the desert, you're just gonna end up with a default desert. There's no desert alternatives like there is with the grass, with like the dirt and grass, which is great for dithering. Finally decided that I had enough built that I could sort of lay out where the pirate area would be. I made mine bigger than the one in the park map. It's not as square. The one that they have is pretty much just the go-kart area, what used to be the go-kart area. But it's pretty square. I decided to, so that I could keep the sort of more sparse feel and not remove the pirate ship, and get the White Pearl and the Twister ride. I named it Fuse Box, sorry, and it's you know, supposed to be an approximation of the Powder Keg ride, which they have in the pirate area. Though you know, they're very different rides. There is no equivalent. At least not in the base game. I'm pretty sure in the expansions there would be something that would be pretty close to the Powder Keg stuff. Surprisingly, you get all three theming kits for this one. So the Roman kit, the Egypt kit, and the mining kit. But I don't use them very much, just sparingly, you know, to try to get some areas a little bit more interesting. Like in the pirate area, I put the barrels because, you know, they're very, you know, piratey. A few of the mining town stuff works pretty good for pirate areas. If you're interested in seeing more piratey areas, the Trinity Islands build sort of takes that aesthetic and applies it to the whole map. In terms of using those theming kits in this one, I actually didn't use them a whole lot. Probably the most used aspect of the theming kit is the log cabin park ride entrance, which is one of my favorite and I think most versatile park ride entrances in the game. It looks a lot better than the standard wooden one. I don't like the standard wooden one. Looks like it's supposed to be on a tropical island or something like that. And you know, it doesn't blend into a whole lot of places. But the log cabin one works great, especially with the huge amount of forested area in the base scenario set. So for that reason, it's definitely like my favorite entrance style. I use it a lot. I use it whenever I can get it, assuming that the you know, the park allows for it. But yeah, generally if I get the mining town stuff, I'm gonna make use of that entrance type. I think it's the best entrance type in the base game. There's cooler ones in the expansions once you get more theming kits, but you know, when you look at the base game, there's the Roman one, which is very Roman. Like, unless you're doing a Roman theme, the Roman entrance or style is just not all that useful. The plain ones are okay if you're going for like a gardeny, nice, clean park style. They work pretty good in a lot of places. The canvas style is really good. I would say the canvas is probably my second favorite in that you can color it, so you can make it work in a lot of settings. It doesn't just have to be like a sort of tent or fairground type setting. You can make it work in all sorts of different settings. You know, though the base wooden one is probably one of my least favorites. I do use it every so often, like especially for stuff that's sitting like along a lake and things like that. I think it looks okay there, but I do find that the wood style that they chose for it is just way too light. You know, there just isn't enough. It doesn't blend in well with the majority of the scenery and the majority of the scenarios. It works well in like desert scenarios, but with the majority of the scenarios being forested areas, not so much. I'm not a big fan of it, but I will use it as an alternative to the log cabin one if I don't get the log cabin one in the scenario. The area close to the entrance, I figured I would keep a lot closer to the 1996 aesthetic, the sort of deep forest. By 2013, it seems like they had kind of gone through and developed that area quite a bit more. But I figured that I would keep the original 1996 aesthetic as with the bat flyer ride there. You know, it sort of requires it. If you look at the point of view video, you know, you're flying through the forest and stuff. That's totally what it was. So I kept it that way. Same thing with the go-karts area. The go-karts area was pretty sparse, so I didn't want to put a whole bunch of rides over there. And then once you sort of move away from the front entrance area, then the 2013 aesthetic really kicks in, and I'm definitely going for more of the 2013 look as opposed to the 1996 look. But I thought having some of that classic stuff in there would be pretty cool. Again, though, do let me know if you would like me to complete the park. If I did do a part 2 of this series, or this video rather, it would probably be following the completion of the main scenario set. So before I dive into the expansions. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to do that. Otherwise, you know, I totally understand if you don't want me to do it and would rather see me build new parks as well. So, you know, depends what's more popular. I don't even know if anyone actually really listens to my voiceovers or watches the whole build on these things anyway. So, you know, for all I know, everybody's just skipping to the end. But if you do listen to the voiceovers, that's pretty cool. I hope you're enjoying them. They're definitely the hardest part about these videos for me to make. It's not something that I'm good at, talking to people. I'm not a super social person, so, you know, it's sort of out of my element. I'm much more comfortable just being on my own, making things. That's sort of what I do. Speaking of which, for the next couple months, videos are going to be pretty sporadic, as I am starting a new job in my professional career as a software engineer. I'm moving on to my next adventure. The whole reason I was actually able to start making these videos, which is something I wanted to do for some time, was I got laid off in November. So, you know, but no big deal. In my industry, it happens a lot. So that brings us to the end of this build. I hope you've enjoyed it. And here is the end result.